Hi, kia ora, and welcome to Creative Connections, where we have beautiful, inspiring conversations with artists living in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Yarkich. Rosanne Croucher is a landscape oil painter from Hamilton, Aotearoa, New Zealand. She sees herself as a painter of moments, as well as landscapes, capturing the splendour, light and mood of ordinary everyday Aotearoa scenes. In this episode, we talk about Rose's experience completing a master's degree of design and visual arts at Unitec in Auckland, which she completed in 2013. How she juggles being a mother of 3 children while still prioritising time to paint. Why she likes to capture ordinary scenes as well as majestic landscapes. How she brings her imagination into her landscape work. And why she loves to paint still water, mist and atmosphere. We talk process from her preference for preparing her own ACM boards and mounting and adhering canvas or linen on top, to techniques she uses for priming and colour mixing, using a rag as well as brushes, and the joys and challenges of plein painting. Rosanne generously shares a mental health condition she has lived with for 30 years, called TTM, or trichotillomania, which she has recently overcome, how this has affected her life, and why she now feels ready to share this with others. This is a beautiful, wonderful episode I know you'll enjoy. Ngā mihi nui, thank you so much to Rosanne for sharing her beautiful practice with us and for being so brave to share her personal beliefs and her mental health. Good morning, Rosanne.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm good, lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too.
So the last time I saw you was at the Creative Connections group show and you submitted a work into that, which is at Kumu Arts, so that was great.
Yeah, I love being part of that show. It was cool to meet some other artists that I hadn't met before.
Yeah, it was a great show, wasn't it? I loved it.
Yeah.
And I plan to do that next year actually, every 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, looking forward to it.
Yeah. And also we did speak, I had to look it up, but it was November 2021, so nearly 5 years ago, for the studio, talking about the studio and how you run your studio, just a little excerpt of about 10 minutes with other artists on that episode. And so that was nice. And so I have been meaning to get to you for ages, actually. It's going to be really lovely to hear your story in full. Welcome to Creative Connections.
Yeah, so excited to be on the show.
So you are living in the Waikato in Hamilton, and you were also born there. What do you love about Hamilton?
I really love the river. I love the foggy mornings in winter, even though it gets really cold and damp. There's just something so beautiful about it here. I know everyone in Hamilton says this, and we probably shouldn't, but it's so close to a lot of other really fun places. It's like a good sort of gateway place to live. You've got Auckland and Tauranga and lots of bushwalks and sort of things to do within sort of a 2-hour drive. My family's here, so I've got my parents here and my sister and her family live here as well. We've got lots of great friends. It's a great place to raise kids. We really like it.
And it does seem to be really sort of growing artistically in that area.
Yeah. I went to so we've got the Waikato Society of Arts here, and they held a creative symposium, I think it was last October, and just hearing from a bunch of locals that are creative, there was people involved in filmmaking and musicians and other artists. And I think it's just such a richly diverse area of creativity. Yeah.
You were born there, and then I know that you went up to Auckland to the Big Smoke for a while. So can you tell us a little bit about the kind of child you were?
Yes, so I was very imaginative. We had this tree in our backyard, and I would just climb up it and just like make up stories and basically like act them out. My sisters and I were always making things, so always drawing, always like making little cutout clothes out of material and putting them on little dolls and coming up with plays and dances. And and things like that. We all played instruments as well. We all did dance. So yeah, just a really creative sort of childhood. But my dad is also was a coastal scientist, so we sort of had that love of learning as well, and of science and maths, and yeah, I guess I was quite well rounded as a kid. I really loved school, loved my friends, loved my family, and yeah, just enjoyed trying a lot of things, and some of them I wasn't very good at, but that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like you connect, well, your life is made up of being in the outdoors and then sort of painting the outdoors or painting moments that you have
Mm.
outside. So was that starting to happen, the outdoorsy life as a child?
Yeah, I think I didn't appreciate it as much when I was a kid, but my parents would, drag us out on holidays and bushwalks and things like that. And now I get to do that with my own kids, which is super fun. Getting to, hear them complain, and I'm like, one day you'll thank me for this. But yeah, so we did a lot of outdoor holidays. We spent a lot of time traveling around New Zealand and holidays and camping and things like that. And yeah, I think I just spent a lot of time outside in the garden. And I don't think that I particularly liked landscape as a thing, I suppose, to draw when I was a kid. But I think later on, like more in high school, we did a landscape series, and I remember we had these like this dairy farm behind us, and just sitting there and drawing the fields and drawing the trees, and just really connecting with something about that I hadn't really in a way before with other
Mm,
art themes.
that's interesting. And how was art at high school for you?
Yeah, really good. Me and my best friend did art, and I love my art teacher. She was really good at motivating us and sort of guiding us in the right direction. And I didn't actually do it. I think I did it up to what do you call it now? Year 12. I didn't actually do it in the final year because I was also quite into fashion design, and that's what I thought I wanted to do a little bit more than the painting. So coming up with ideas was always and still is sort of a big part of why I'm interested in always making things. But yeah, I loved art in high school. We did still life and sculpture and like printmaking, and I really liked doing all those different disciplines because I feel when you try different things like that, you always have something to take away that you can then apply to the main thing that you like doing. So I'm really appreciative of all I learned there. Yeah, definitely set me up for more to come.
You went on to study paramedicine, which is quite interesting when you think of, what you were doing at high school and thinking about
Mm.
fashion and other things. How did you get onto that at the beginning?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think I guess I really like biology and the sciences as well. And I didn't really know anyone in a creative career, so I wasn't. I guess for me, that didn't feel like a sort of a stable pathway. Still doesn't feel like that now. So we've moved on from that. And I guess that there wasn't YouTube and there wasn't social media then, and yeah, I think it's not easier now, but there are more sort of ways to do it now than there were in the earlier 2000s.
Mm,
And so I really like helping people. I like being around people. I liked, yeah, as I said, the sciences. And so I thought that it could be a good choice to sort of get into like a health science sort of degree. And I did enjoy it. But it didn't really fit with my brain so well. I'm quite, yeah, imaginative and always thinking of ideas, and you had to be quite sort of black and white and very decisive. And it just, yeah, it just wasn't a good fit. And so I did about 2 years of that, and then I had some back problems as well. So kind of everything happened at the same time, and I ended up being in bed for 2 weeks with these back problems. I've got a rod in my back, and it's something about what I was doing aggravated it. And so I took some time off and sort of just rethought my choices, and yeah, sort of eventually decided to get back into painting. I started painting again in my spare time, which I hadn't been able to do for a while, and yeah, it sort of grew from there.
Well, it's lovely that you found your love of painting again. And
Yeah.
then you went to Bible college for a year. Was that sort of, I know your faith is important to you. Was
Mm.
that something that you felt you needed to do for your life, or was it just a little bit of an interim between that and something else?
I think it started off as I don't know what else to do right now, so I'm going to do this because I had a couple of friends who were also doing it. But it sort of quickly became one of the more significant years of my life, like just yeah, just sort of getting really centered on my faith and just making great relationships, having some amazing opportunities. I was part of a group that toured around high schools in New Zealand and, just encouraged kids and yeah, just sort of came alongside them and we did like a dance show. I was on the dance team. Um, yeah, and it was sort of towards maybe October in that year, so I sort of finished in December that I just really was like, I want to give this art thing a go. I think this is something I'm meant to do. I just, I can't not create. I can't not make art. And so, yeah, that was sort of the point that I got my portfolio together to submit and yeah, got into Unitec. I chose Unitec because it was 3 years and the other ones in Auckland were 4 years and I had already studied for 3 years. So that was the basis of my decision. But yeah, it worked out really well. Yeah.
That's so good. And then you ended up doing the masters.
Yes, I got sucked into more study. So I did 3 years of the undergrad and then I was like, if there was a scholarship they were offering through Unitec, and I said, well, if I get the scholarship, then I'll do it. If I don't get the scholarship, then I'm not going to do it. But I got the scholarship. So it was another year and a half after that. Yeah. So it was
Oh,
a 3 year degree and then a year and a half master's. Yeah.
amazing. Wow. So that's a lot of study all up, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Could have been
Yeah.
a doctor or something, but
Yes. But that may not have suited your
no,
brain, as you
no, it
said.
wouldn't have.
Yeah. What was it that made you feel like you wanted to go and study visual art?
I think, kind of as I mentioned before, I just have this inner compulsion to always be making stuff, and I have so many ideas. I actually was thinking about this the other day. Like I know that my days will run out before I run out of ideas. Like other artists talk about creative block, and I've never had that. Like there's just always something going on to the point that there's like this massive backlog, and I have to ruthlessly sort of edit through my ideas because there's so many. And that I thought that might stop when I had kids. Because I wasn't really able to make, but it just keeps going, and so it's almost like I kind of have to, otherwise I just get all blocked up. And so yeah, it's just I don't know, I just feel like it's how I was made. I just need to be making something. I need to be
Mm.
exploring these ideas.
And
Yeah.
did you ever think that maybe you just needed to start making on your own terms, or did you feel like you needed to study to kind of support your practice?
Yeah, I think I've just always been drawn to studying because I just love the school environment and I love the uni environment. Just being in a class and learning among other people. I think if I did it again now, I might have done it differently and gone a different route, like maybe gone to Europe and done sort of one of the ateliers there. Yeah, I'm really glad I did it. And I think that I guess there's things you learn being around other people that you wouldn't pick up on if you were learning by yourself. There's things like critiques that you do at uni where, people can point out all that's wrong with your work, and you don't really get that if you're self-taught potentially, unless you have, those other relationships that can do that for you. So yeah, it was really valuable. Lots of different art theory and all the other people who had different styles, that all sort of feeds into it, and you get sort of quite a broad picture of the art world, I guess.
Yeah, so true. And did you find landscape painting or sort of continue to develop landscape painting from that sort of first experience you had at high school?
Yeah, sort of. It sort of went up and down. So I think in my first year I did some landscapes, and then in my second year I kind of went more like abstract. but there were still some landscape elements in there. And then sort of by my third year and then in masters, I had a bit more landscape, but I still wasn't doing like straight landscape, I guess you would call it, like I'm doing now. There was still sort of like I was collaging bits and pieces in there, like there were figures in there doing, like it was sort of surrealism and realism combined for a while. And I think I just really used that time to just go hard on a lot of different ideas I had and sort of see what stuck. Most of what I did at uni, I don't really like when I look back on it now, but maybe that's true of a lot of people. So yeah, it wasn't actually until I left uni that I sort of went more down the landscape route. And I think a big part of that was because in Auckland, we were living next to One Tree Hill, like right next to one of the entrances. And I would just go there all the time, like go for walks, go for runs. And it was that familiarity of environment to me that I would always be seeing things and be like, oh, I want to paint that, I want to paint that. And I hadn't really had that since that moment, back home when I was sketching the field by the backyard. And so it sort of grew out of this love of the environment I was already in. I wasn't searching out places to paint. It was like right in front of me and I wanted to capture it. So I did a lot of paintings of like our street. So there was like a state house opposite us that I did a painting of that then got demolished. So that was quite cool because it's not there anymore. And I did just heaps of One Tree Hill. I started off just doing little ones and then they got bigger and a bit more ambitious. But yeah, that's that belonging and that love of a certain place really kicked it off for me.
And it was 2013 that you completed your master's, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So I was working part-time at my friend's chiropractic clinic that he'd recently opened. And then part-time, I was in the studio. And then after about a year and a half, 2 years, I became a medical receptionist at AUT. And I really liked the balance. So I think I was working sort of 2-3 days a week there and then the other 2-3 days a week in the studio. And I liked the balance of being around people and doing something that had regular pay and that was kind of a different industry. And then also having my own time to work on my paintings. And my life is kind of still like that now with kids. Like I'm still not full-time. So I've never really been a full-time artist, but we'll get there.
I mean, I feel like a full-time artist it's not dependent so much on the amount of days that you work or the amount of hours you work. I think it's almost more of a mindset,
Yes.
that you see yourself as a working artist and the actual hours, they can come and go, but
Yeah.
that is your main job, and I think it's really smart sort of compartmentalizing almost having that sort of part-time job that you did for those days and then having that routine of, devoting yourself to your art practice on the other days. I can imagine that would work really well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with your children, it's a different thing because it's sort of all in amongst, your art practice.
Yeah.
It's not sort of
Yes.
certain days and then switch off.
Yeah. I'm in an interesting time at the moment actually because my youngest goes to school at the start of next term. So it's basically been about 9 years of raising kids and painting in nap times, sort of for like an hour at a time and squeezing it in here and there. So at the moment, my max kind of work time in a week is 15 hours. But once my youngest starts school in just a couple of months, I'll be up to sort of 25 hours, so sort of school day weeks. So yeah, for the first time in 9 years, I'm so excited because all this time will be opening up and I can't, yeah, it's like a real transition point. So yes, it's probably an interesting time to interview me. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually feels like the beginning of a new era in some ways for
Yeah.
you. And that's
Yeah.
so exciting. I mean, how are you feeling about that? And how do you feel like you're going to actually manage that studio time to make sure that you're as efficient as possible?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I think one of the things I might do is try and not schedule anything on a Friday. I have other mum friends who do this, and because kids are sick, and often there's things that take longer than I expect in terms of like making a painting. And I often, I'm too optimistic with my time. And so I end up sort of having to catch up anyway. So I'm going to try and sort of leave Fridays as hopefully kind of mainly unscheduled catch up time. But yeah, I'm really excited. I kind of feel like I'm only just beginning my career really again. And I'm just so excited at the new possibilities that this sort of extra time opens up. Like I haven't been able to do a solo show or anything like that for years, because I just can't produce enough work in a year for that sort of thing. So yeah, really excited about all that is to come. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. And then I guess you're used to kind of working in windows as such. So now you've got like a 5 hour window, which is bigger and will feel good. But it's still that window where you can't just kind of let yourself go and get into the flow and not think about, I need to be somewhere at 2:30 or
Mm.
that kind of thing. Yeah. Do you think you'll have any clever little strategies for handling that?
I think I'm just used to it now. I'm just used to working in smaller chunks. It's quite hard because 2:45 is when I sort of have to leave the studio to get ready for school pickup, and that's always the time of day that I most feel like painting, like I'm most in the zone. Um, but it's taught me that it's not based on feelings as well. You have to have the self discipline to show up and to put in the work, even if it feels like you might get interrupted any second. Or yeah, so it sort of taught me that I can paint whatever I'm feeling, whatever the circumstances. Getting anything done is better than getting nothing done. And so I don't have all these requirements for being in the zone or for a certain amount of time where I have to get lost in it. Like I can also paint if I have 10 minutes, versus a 5 hour stretch. And I think that's really valuable. It's good to have that versatility of being able to work, yeah, whatever time that I have available. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, and that's just how it needs to be. So you just got to kind
Yeah.
of work around that.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you describe for us your painting practice?
Sure. So I make landscape paintings mainly, and they are based on light and atmosphere. So I really love taking a scene that's usually ordinary sort of most of the time, but at the right time of day or with the right sort of atmospheric condition, it goes from being sort of just an ordinary everyday scene to something quite special and magical. And so I use a lot of light effects or like mist. I do a lot of sunsets, and a lot of my works are actually just places down the road from where I live, just places that I've come across in my day. I don't go out specifically to search for reference material. I just take photos with me wherever I am. And I don't really go after particular places to paint either. Once again, it's just where I find myself. I've made paintings of the view next to a playground where my kids have been playing, or just the lake while we've been walking around. I did a whole series in lockdown and back in 2020 just of like my street. And I just love that there's so much beauty all around us. We don't have to look very hard. It's just outside. Sometimes I'm just stepping outside and I'm on my driveway and I'm like, oh, the sky is so amazing. Like I could paint this right now. And so it's always just something that I've come across, that I think really needs to be expressed in a painting. And I'm just like,
Mm,
someone needs to see this, because if someone was walking past right now, they probably wouldn't even look at it, right? Like, and so just sort of elevating those ordinary everyday scenes into something that's worth spending time on and worth looking at, and yeah, worth celebrating.
yeah, I love that. And I read you wrote somewhere that you're not a painter of places, but a painter of moments.
Mm, yes, yep, still true. Yeah, so which is difficult in a way because a lot of people buy for a specific place, and because I'm not really like an abstract artist, um, sometimes I find it hard to kind of define where I sit on that sort of boundary. But yeah, definitely I found it difficult. So I started getting into plein air painting a few years back, and I find that quite hard because that's the opposite of what I normally do. I have to go to a specific place and look for a specific scene to paint, and I'm painting the place and not the moment as such. So yeah, but my preference is to just be out somewhere and I'm just wowed by something. Often we're driving somewhere and I'm in the car and I'm like, pull over, and I sort of sprint off into a field and take some photos. So it is very much that that I just see something and I'm like, wow, this needs to be captured. And so a lot of places I paint aren't places. Like sometimes people ask me, where's this? And I'm like, I don't know. I was on the side of the road somewhere between, Queenstown and Wanaka. I don't know. So, yeah.
And that's quite interesting, isn't it, in itself? I mean, I've heard people, artists who create landscapes who don't necessarily like to make it a particular place because they feel like that might sort of limit their audience. But then also there are people who want to see an exact certain place, and then they can connect with that place. So where do you stand with that kind of idea?
I think with commissions especially, I normally get asked for specific places, and that's fine. So I think I can do either. Like sometimes a specific place is really special and important as well. And there have been times where I've wanted to paint a particular place just because of how it looks and how it is. So yeah, I think there's room for everyone. There's room for commissions and places that are really specific. And sometimes I'll say, the place in the title if that's important. Other times it's more about, the kind of atmospheric effect. Like I did one of Whitianga maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it was this beautiful sunrise and there's like mist and there's like this little sun and there's this little pair of seagulls. And you wouldn't really be able to tell that was Whitianga, because it's mainly about the atmosphere. So I think some of them, it just doesn't matter. Like it could be any beach really, or so it has that ability to connect with people who it reminds them of a different place that place doesn't actually depict, whereas there are others is very specific. And I think, there's definitely room for all of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And as an artist, I imagine that's quite nice for you to kind of just go where you feel like going without that restriction of exactly creating or responding to a particular place. And you are, as you said, an imaginative person. How do you feel like you bring your imagination into some of these scenes?
I think, back when I first started doing landscapes, I was quite faithful, I suppose, to what was actually there. And, I relied a lot more on photo references and things like that. Now preferably I use a combination of like a study from life or my memories from life, and then I have my photos, and then I take all that and I make a design in Procreate on the iPad. So actually, I guess there's a lot of input into that from those different areas. And I'm kind of coming up with a new design that mostly reflects reality, but is translated in a way that it will work better as a painting. So, I'm removing things, I'm putting things in. Sometimes I've changed the lighting of a scene. So I did one a couple of years back where it was actually just sort of an overcast day and I made it a sunset because I thought that would work better, and it did. So you can do things like that where it's not exactly how I experienced it, but it has elements of that, and you've got artistic license. So I think in the end of the day, it's trying to be faithful to that moment that I experienced that I really want to capture, but at the same time understanding and being able to take that to a place where it works really well as a painting and it works the best way possible that it can as a painting.
Yeah. And the light, your fascination for light and reflection and atmosphere, where do you think that's come from?
I think I guess my faith, like I think when I see light in the sky, I just reminds me of God. And I just think it's just so amazing. Like when you think about light or like rainbows or just anything like that, like how can you not be so moved? Like it's just, I don't know, it's so beyond comprehension, like how the sun rises every day and sets every day and the way it filters through the clouds. And when you actually paint these things, there's so many colors that go into them. Like even just a grey sky can have like 20 different colours in it. And so I'm just totally overwhelmed by light and all that it affects. It affects form, it affects colour. Like if you have a backlit scene, the light will change the colour and form of everything in front of it. And I just think the power that has is incredible, and it's a lot of fun to paint, but also, yeah, just kind of has that symbolism, I guess, of just sort of greatness and awe and that, making those ordinary scenes so incredible. And reflections as well, I think it's just, reflection kind of reflects the sky. It sort of reminds me of like heaven on earth, and just, I don't know, it always just catches my eye being able to see light on the ground as well as in the sky. So I think that's why I'm into the water, bodies of water as well, specifically still water. And then with mist and things like that, just the same thing. Like, I don't know, I just love the softness of it, and it blends edges. And so I think I just like things that are kind of undefined in a way. Probably my least favorite scene to paint is like a sunny day where it's just like, I don't know, trees. Because everything's so defined, like the shapes are so defined, whereas when you have really strong light or strong mist, the edges kind of blur and it becomes a bit more ambiguous and a bit more mysterious. Yeah.
And it's quite lovely that you've really created a very sort of distinctive style. It's, your work it feels sort of nicely packaged. Like, sometimes artists try lots of different things and they enjoy that, and it feels like you have your area that you're very interested in, landscape with those kind of focuses. Do you feel like that's something that you will always retain, and do you feel like that's something that's really important to you and the way you work, or can you see yourself kind of going sideways?
I'm so glad you say that, because I always feel like I'm not nicely packaged enough. I think because I do so many different kinds of landscapes, whereas some landscape artists, just sort of stick with the one theme, like coast or bush or something. But yeah, I think I definitely am kind of going sideways just a little bit at the moment. There are a lot of things I want to explore, but I think that sense of light and, yeah, I guess the things that I like to include in a painting will always be similar. So I've got two works that I'm just starting now for a show on the Hamilton Gardens that I'm in April. And one of those is actually of some roses, which is new for me. So, but they have the same sense of light as my other work, so it will feel like my work, but it's sort of just a slightly different. Yeah, just trying
Yeah, which
something
is great.
different.
And it
Yeah.
seems like a really lovely thread that can connect different sort of ideas and different places and maybe different subjects, but you're still kind of bringing that interest that you have in the light and reflection and
Yeah.
water. And yeah.
Yeah, I sort of feel like I'm in a place now where I can paint anything, I suppose, and make it to how I want it to be, and not feel like because it's a different subject or a different theme that like, I can't do that, because I'm sort of at a experience level, I suppose, where I've tried a few different things and I now can see, how it translates into other subjects and
Yeah.
those own as well if I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. It's such a good place to be, isn't it?
Mm.
And a lot of your works, especially, I mean, a lot of them, but for example, the one that you showed at the Creative Connections group show that we mentioned, a lot of them do really look like photographs and
Mm.
from a distance, and then you come and closer and see that it's clearly a painting. Do you see your work as photorealistic or realistic, or do you even like putting it into a category like that?
I wouldn't say it's photorealistic. Yeah, I say realistic. A lot of people will say they look like photos. I think part of that as well is because unless you're at an exhibition seeing the work in person, I suppose a lot of the art we consume now is on Instagram or, on Facebook or on websites. And it does look like a little photo because you are seeing it as a photo, on your little screen. So I think a bit of that is lost, when you're standing in front of a work, there's so much more that you can see, like all the brush marks, and I think works are made kind of to be viewed from, in a certain space, and sort of in a certain scale. And so, yeah, I'm not offended by anything that people say about if it looks like a photo or not. I'm not really too fussed about that. But yeah, I suppose I would define them as just realism. Yeah.
Mm. Can you tell us a little bit about your process from, the beginning, finding your substrate and then starting a painting?
Yeah, so I actually prefer painting on panel over canvas. Yeah, they do actually sell some good panels at Gordon Harris now, and also Frames by Daniel makes some, so I've used his before. But I also make my own panels, so I use ACM, which is like aluminium, and I mount canvas or linen on top of that. That's a really archival support, and it's not something you can buy in New Zealand. It doesn't like warp or get mold on it or like dent or sag or whatever like a canvas does or like a wood support does. And so I prefer those as well because I can make custom sizes. So I can just buy a big sheet of ACM and cut it to the size that I want. So especially for my commissions, they're often quite strange like ratios of rectangle. Like I do a lot of sort of long, thinner ones. And those take a bit of time to make, but I try and make a few of them at a time. So basically the process is cutting the ACM and then you mount the canvas or linen on top. You sort of roll it with like a rubber brayer, get all the air bubbles out.
What's the adhesive that you put on underneath the canvas?
So it's by Lineco, it's like a PVA sort of pH neutral adhesive. Yeah. And then, yeah, you sort of prime and sand on top of that.
And then how do you deal with the edges of the canvas around the aluminium?
So I think initially I was folding them under, but it was just annoying because then you had to like glue it a second time underneath. And my framers didn't like that. So now I just cut it flush with the edge and then I get them framed and works beautifully. Yeah, the only problem is I can't hang them in my studio. So I had to get my husband to make me like a drying rack so I can lay them flat. So I can't just hang them on the wall. But yeah, I really love painting on them.
And they're not too heavy?
No. Often on my last layer of primer, I'll tint it a little bit. So with oil paint, so I do like an oil prime layer last. And I might tint it a slightly pink or slightly yellow or whatever is sort of the main color of what I'm working on. And then I sketch on the design. And then I think every painting I do a little bit differently. I don't really have like a one size fits all formula. Sometimes I tone the whole canvas like with a darker color, like I just scrub the paint in. That works well if it's like a darker sort of sunset, because then I can get rid of all the white and the light colors, and it's easier to judge the values. Other times I will go in with trying to get as accurate information as possible on there straight from sort of layer one. Other times I kind of really roughly just do a rough layer one just to get most of it on there, and then I sort of build it up from there. I did 2 paintings last year actually for the De Novo Christmas show where I used a transparent paint, and I had to approach that really differently because this transparent paint is like a yellow color called nickel azo yellow. I love this paint. It's my favorite paint. But if you spread it really thinly, it gets like a super light, bright yellow. And if you build it up thickly, it's basically like a brown. And I wanted to do as much of these paintings as I could using just that one tube of paint. And so I had to approach it really carefully by building up really thin layers. So that was an interesting challenge, which I'd like to do more of because they turned out really well. So yeah, I try and use the transparency of the oil paints as well. So that's another reason I like working on panel is because it's hard. I actually use a rag and do a lot of wiping off. I scrub in the paint with like a really hard brush because that's how you get that sort of transparency effect. And canvas just doesn't quite have those options because you can't be denting the canvas. So yeah.
You're so clever with color. I've seen some really amazing little little videos on Instagram where you're sort of talking through parts of your process. And I really loved that one that you did where you were asking your audience how many colours they thought were in the
Yeah.
grass that you were
Oh,
painting,
yeah.
which was actually like, oh my God, pink and sort of sienna and so many different colours. And then when you actually look at the grass, it doesn't look like, well, it doesn't feel like, you don't get a sense of those colours almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you approach your making of colours?
Yeah, so this is something that I've sort of just honed in on mainly in the last couple of years, is that I choose my paint tubes that I'm going to work with ahead of time. So I do the design of the painting, and there's a neat tool on the Golden Artist Colors website where you can pick pick like colors, like paint pigments from the Williamsburg. That's the oil range, but you can do it with their acrylics as well, and mix them together with other ones, and you can get a color. And so I use that tool a lot just to basically find out what is the least amount of paint tubes I can use to get all the colors I need in my painting design. And so sometimes that's maybe 4 or 5 tubes of paint. Sometimes it's more, just depending on what kind of colors are in there. But that process and going through that, and I still do that now, has been really useful in terms of that if you limit the amount of paint tubes you're using, you're not overwhelmed and you're not confused by how to mix the colors because you've already sort of figured it out. And you have that sort of harmony of using less colors, and so it becomes easier to then add more color in. It seems sort of counterintuitive, but you can add more color in because you know that all the colors work together really well. So like, for example, I did a rainbow painting last year. I also did a video on this which shocked a few people, but I made a rainbow without using any blue. So I just had magenta was like my blue in the rainbow, and because of the whole painting was kind of like a peach orange kind of pinky key, um, the magenta became the blue in that situation because of the context it was in. And so just that understanding of color theory, and that you don't need to, use every color you have. You can actually make something really beautiful and harmonious and something that works really well as a whole with just, limited colors. So that's sort of my strategy now, is just to use as least paint tubes as possible. You always have the option of adding in, other colors. Like if I needed a really bright pop of orange or something, then of course I can. It's not a rigid rule. I can add in other colors if I want. Yeah, just the idea of making the bulk of the painting with less colors. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have sort of tints and shades of those colours, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so how do you organise your paint palette?
Badly. I see beautiful videos of how other artists do it, and I don't know, I can't do it. But I have a glass palette, and I can sort of put all the colors in order. So white always goes, it sort of goes like white, yellow, orange, red, sort of up to the darker colors like that. So I guess I always put the similar colors in the similar place. But then in terms of mixing space, it's all a bit messy. I just end up piling it all on top of each other, and I hate cleaning my palette, so I kind of leave it for a few weeks and then eventually run out of room, and I have to, yeah.
And you mix your colours as you go, as you need the colour?
Yeah, so I think on bigger works, or works with like that have a lot of 1 or 2 colors, or like if I'm doing a sky that needs to be really softly blended, then I will pre-mix. But most of the time, I just do it as I go.
And tell us about your brushes. Give us some super great Rosanne tips around brushes.
Well, my philosophy around brushes is just that you need a big variety of what you use. I have some that are really nice and expensive, and others that are very ragged and well used and have like paint flakes falling off the handle, and some of them are like sellotape together. And so I think there's just, the variety of brushes you have, I guess, just means that you have a greater variety of marks that you can make. And as I said before as well, I use a rag just as much as I use brushes. And so, I think I don't actually use, I know a lot of realists probably do this, but I don't have a really small brush. Like my smallest brush is probably like a size 1. Like I just don't have those little tiny brushes. And I think I just I think I'm trying to move away from being super, super detailed. And so if I need to, I just like use the corner of a bigger brush, or like I try and make do with a bigger brush size. But it does make it hard when I have to sign my paintings because I don't have a really little brush for that. So
Yeah.
like signing my paintings is actually the hardest part of the painting. Like I don't know why I'm so bad at it, but like yeah.
How do you actually sign your name on your paintings?
So I try and make it fit in with the work, so I don't want it to be distracting. So I always use the similar colors and sort of try and almost hide it in a way, but it's still like still legible. But what I do is I actually and sometimes I do it while the painting's still wet, but sometimes it's dry. I actually do the signature, but then because I'm so bad at it and my brush isn't small enough, I then go back in with like the color of the background or whatever it's on, and like redo the like holes and like the R and the O. So I like basically I take way longer on it than I should, but that's how I do it. I can't just do it in one. I have to sort of go back and like redo the lines, but I think it works quite well because it fits in with the painting, and it's obvious, but it doesn't scream
Mm.
out at you. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you put the date on it?
No, just the signature. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. It's quite fascinating actually hearing about how people sign their paintings. I must ask that question more often. I have asked a few artists, but I just find it really interesting. It says something about people's identity, I think, the way they
Mm,
approach that.
yeah.
You mentioned in one of your posts in Instagram that you have had a mental health condition for the last 30 years.
Mm,
Do you mind talking about this, Rosanne?
yeah, sure. I can talk about it.
Okay. How has that affected you? And then in turn, how has it influenced your art practice?
I think I didn't realize I didn't think it affected me that much. But now that it's gone, I guess I'm realizing that I guess all the little ways that it did impact me. So this is kind of a condition that's kind of in the OCD family. It's not OCD, but it's sort of similar. And I think the main thing was that it just caused me to doubt my mind sometimes, or like the soundness of it. And so I would second guess myself a lot, or just I guess just not trust what I was thinking 100%. And now that I look back, I can see that there were times that I could have been more decisive, or I should have just went with my instinct, but I didn't, and kind of moments like that. But I guess now I just feel a lot more freedom and a lot more clarity and just a lot more ownership of my mind. And it's exciting. I feel, I guess that's another reason why I sort of feel like I'm only just getting started. That and the new time opening up is that I just feel ready and brave enough to try things that I have been putting off for fear of not being able to do them justice. Um, so really, really exciting place to be.
Mm.
Yeah. So it was more of like a coping mechanism based on something that happened to me as a kid. So sort of like an escape, kind of like a way to zone out sort of temporarily. Yeah. So
Mm.
I guess I feel a lot more present now. And I mean, my mind is always so busy. And so now I am just thinking things all the time. There's no escape. But it's good because, I do a lot of processing through my thoughts and a lot of thinking through ideas. And, there's a lot that goes on before something ever makes it to a canvas. Sometimes I've thought of a bunch of things and I've already just discarded some things and already decided some things won't work or this will. And there's just a lot of thought. Some paintings that I want to still make that I haven't made yet have sort of been kicking around in there for years. And every now and then I kind of bring them out and think about them. And each time I think about them, I'm like, oh, actually this way of doing it would be better. And so some things, just kind of percolate in there and benefit from that sort of really rigorous thought process. And so I
Mm.
feel, now I can kind of bring even more of that to the table. Yeah.
That's so good. So you feel like you've kind of moved on from that condition as such.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think helped you get through that? Was it sort of identifying or labeling what you were experiencing, or how did you get your head around that and then move forward?
Yes, it's quite an unusual story. I'm still sort of processing it. So basically, I was just praying. I was spending some time with God in my studio, and I sort of just, yeah, just saw this moment that happened to me as a kid, and kind of went back through my life and all these moments. And I guess I had felt alone at that time and alone at other times, and God was just sort of showing me that He had always been there, and just that His love was always there, and then I just felt like I didn't have this condition anymore, which is weird because I wasn't even thinking of it, and I didn't really realize that it was linked to that kind of incident, I suppose. And I guess just that feeling of knowing that I wasn't alone in that time, just I don't know, just healed it. It's just gone. So it's I think it was October last year, and like it's just gone. Like there's no other explanation. It sounds crazy, but um, yeah. And then I felt like, because part of this condition was that I had it's sort of a shame around talking about it. Only my husband knew about it and my family. It's not very common. I'll say what it is actually, because there might be other people struggling with it, but it's called TTM. Um, you can Google that later. Um, but yeah, it's not one of the more common ones, and so I think there's just a lot of stigma around it, and I didn't really want to deal with that. And as I said, I felt like it wasn't really impacting me that much. Like it was quite mild. Um, but yeah, I just had a lot of shame around it. I just felt annoyed that I couldn't willpower my way out of it. I have a smart brain. Why could I not just get past this? But I had kind of long ago just sort of come to a place of acceptance, and I was like, you know what, this is fine. Like, it's not really a big deal. Yeah, and part of what I felt like was sort of my healing process was telling other people. So I got in contact with the pastors at our church actually, and I told them, and then I told some good friends, and I had a conversation with my family about it, and I've had lots of conversations actually, and it's been amazing hearing from other people who've had struggles that they've not shared about because of shame or because of whatever reason, and just yeah, being able to be vulnerable and having that open doors for other people to do the same has been really amazing. And yeah, it's really strange talking about it after not talking about it for so long, but like it's just so healing to bring things into the light, I suppose, that
Yeah.
hadn't been talked about for shame or for fear or whatever. And yeah, I guess I'm just hoping that yeah, I mean, maybe through this, that somebody would be encouraged to do the same, that we're all dealing with stuff, and no one's perfect. We've all got our baggage and our things that we struggle with, and but it's so helpful to talk about it because you can get encouragement, and you can help someone else out who is going through similar things. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Roseanne. It's
All
really,
right.
really brave, and it's lovely that you've got to that point where you feel like you can
Mm,
acknowledge it and talk about it, and then to share it, like you said, in a way that could help others is
mm.
is fantastic. So thank you so much. Do you allow yourself time to experiment and play? And how does that contribute to your practice, do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to have more time to experiment. I don't get a lot of time because, yeah, my time is already limited with kids. But last June, I did a study a day challenge, which I think I only made it through 18 days or maybe less. Maybe it was like 12. But yeah, just sort of trying to get some of my ideas out there onto paper. I just was doing little sketches on paper. And actually, last year I entered two charcoal and chalk works into an exhibition. So I do make a little bit of time for it, but I'm someone who loves trying new things. Like I was learning swing dancing last year, and then my friend and I did like a make your own stained glass candle holder sort of workshop. And so I actually really love trying new things, and I have to rein myself in. But often those things are like non kind of painting practice related. So yes, if I had more time, I totally would make a little bit more time for that kind of play and experimentation. But in the same kind of grain, I just really want to make the paintings that I want to make as well. And sometimes those require experimentation, and most of the time they don't. I'm sort of just building on what I've already done. I do have one that I'm making now that's got gold leaf in it, and that's I actually have a bucket list of things I want to do that I've called 40 before 40, and one of those was to make a painting with gold leaf in it, and that was like so scary. Even worse is that I decided to make things hard for myself. That the part of this painting that's gold is like a thin circle. So not only is it a circle and it's thin, I had to like figure out. So I had to do some experiments on how to actually apply the gold and the adhesive and all of that, and try and figure that out. And it went pretty well. But yeah, so there's always things like that where I'm looking for little extra things I can introduce to my painting practice that don't deflect or take away from anything I'm already doing, but that can just enhance and just in little ways. Yeah.
Do you feel like your paintings have evolved over the years?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I don't know, I just cringe when I look back at some of my earlier stuff. Like it just, I don't know, I think I put a lot of effort into what I was painting. So I was always very like concept driven. Like this is the image, this is the scene. Whereas now, especially over the last few years, I've deliberately started doing things that cut through my like bad habits or like my biases that aren't really serving the direction I want to go in. So things like I used to paint sitting down, and now I paint standing up, because I wanted to put more expression and more sort of looseness into my work. And so now I consider more how I paint sort of just as much as what I'm painting. Somehow makes me less sort of tight and like, all hunched over like a prawn kind of working on something. It means that there's just a bit more expression that can come out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally see that. And can you tell us a little bit about your galleries and how you made connections with them at the beginning?
Yes, I'm with Inspirit Gallery in Tamahere with Jenny. But yeah, I sort of started with her a few years back, and she sold a few of my pieces. And then I'm also with Welcome Swallow Gallery in Hamilton East with Clive, and that's been great. So the Hamilton Gardens exhibition that I'm making works for is through them in April. So Inspirit is more of like a shop gallery. So it's been great getting on board with Welcome Swallow. I think I've been with them for like a year and a half. So that one's a bit more recent, but they do, yes, it does the themed exhibitions and the opening night. So it's great to, kind of get back into that sort of side of things more. Yeah.
Yeah, having deadlines is always good.
Yes.
Yes. And are you wanting to kind of extend your reach a little bit across New Zealand with galleries?
Yeah, I think I haven't considered it a lot while my kids have been young because of time constraints. But now that, my time's opening up a bit more, I'm definitely thinking about, what kind of where to go from here, and do I want to add another gallery that's in a different city or in a different country, or but I think first I just want to maintain what I have first, and be able to make sure I can keep up with the demand for that, because I also do commissions, so I need to factor that in. But I would love to be in more group exhibitions and do a solo show eventually. I actually have two different exhibition ideas for solo shows, and so I have designed works for those already that I'm kind of just like holding back because there's maybe like 10, 11, 12 works that kind of would fit really well in sort of one series. That's definitely on my mind. I think as well I'm keen to try out doing some of the art fairs around the place. I just love being able to connect with people, especially working by myself most of the week. That's what I love about exhibitions, and being able to show your work, and it's just connecting with collectors and connecting with other artists is really important, and that's something I've missed a lot. Being a mum and painting during nap times and things like that, is that I don't like. I'm kind of only just starting to build an artistic community here, and I just really want to be out there a bit more, I guess, and
The regional art shows could be good for you, couldn't they?
Yeah. So just sort of tossing up a few different options, and I think this year I'll just not make any sudden moves. I kind of just get used to what the new hours of working are like, and then sort of from next year onwards I'll kind of be looking a bit more into the future around those
Mm,
sorts of.
yeah, and setting goals once you
Mm,
kind of get a feel for that transition, which is actually very exciting, isn't it? It does feel
yeah.
like you're coming into a new zone with your practice.
Yes, 100%. So
Yeah,
excited.
it's so good. And what advice would you give your younger artistic self?
Yeah, I think what I mentioned before about how I would always think about what I was painting, but not how I was painting it. Like I definitely would, yeah, put more thought into that earlier on. I think that you can tell, like I can tell now if a painting's kind of been not considered as a whole. Um, like it's more just being considered in parts. And so I think that I just would have looked up different techniques earlier and just looked at brushwork and just like looked at more art that I admired, like in the flesh, like just gone to exhibitions and just sat there with works and just like looked at how they actually put paint on and like tried to figure out, like reverse engineer and try and figure out how they made it. I put a lot of energy into like, yes, thinking about what they were of. But that's something I definitely look into earlier if I did it again.
Mm.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, you obviously are very skilled technically. Do you feel like that's come from your university days, or is that something that you've developed over time just from experience, or have you actually kind of looked into courses and that kind of thing to help?
Mm. Yeah, I think I was always a realist at heart, so I always liked kind of copying what I saw in front of me. So I guess some of it was I kind of had that in childhood. But yeah, at uni, I didn't learn how to paint better. I learned how to, well, I did through practice, but there weren't, we didn't actually learn how to, observe from life or whatever in terms of realism. So yeah, I think I've just through practice, through trial and error, and through doing plein air over the last few years as well, that's been really helpful. Like it's sort of like the extreme sport, like the rock climbing of painting, I think, because you have to battle like the light constantly changes and there's bugs and there's like wind and people stop and talk to you like right at the crucial moment. I had one recently where I was on a lake and the boardwalk was like swaying because it was like in the water. And like when people went past, they had to kind of edge past, and like all my panels fell in the water, and it was just like it was crazy. But it's like you have to make really quick decisions, and it forces you to just be like, right, this is what I'm looking at. I have to make a painting out of this, and you have to make really quick decisions about composition and color, and like how you lay the paint down and everything. So that's been like I've learned more doing plein air paintings than I have. One plein air painting could equal like 6 months in the studio. Like it's just amazing how much you learn. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, just keeping going, I guess, with always stretching yourself. Yeah, just grow my skills and improve. I wasn't really thinking about selling them at all. Um, and I think the main reason I started doing it is because a lot of the landscape artists I admire, whose work that I'm like, this is amazing. Like I just love their work. They do plein air painting, and so I was like, well, if they do it, then I need to do it too. And I think there's just I don't know. The more I get into it, the more you can kind of tell like if something's done from life versus a photo. And the more I get into it, the more I can tell the differences. Like there's just I don't know, just a different sort of presence from something that's based on life, even something that's started from life or that's the study's been done from life and then it's been finished in the studio. There's still like a massive difference between that and just sort of using a photo in the studio. And I wanted more of those qualities in my work. Also, I love being outside. And I like meeting people. So it was sort of a nice, becomes like a fun outing. I haven't actually done it for a while, but when I do it, it's like a treat for me because I get to do several things that I enjoy all at once. And get a lot of learning out of it as well. And then sometimes I can sell it. So yeah, ticks all the
Mm.
boxes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
such a good idea. It's really interesting to hear. Yeah, and probably once your kids are at school, you'll have more time for that as well, which is nice.
Yes, yeah, I should do
Yeah.
that on the first day of my daughter starting school.
So you've mentioned artists that inspire you. Who is it that informs your practice, do you think?
There's a lot of artists on Instagram that I follow, like overseas. There's a bunch of guys like Patrick Okra and Mark Boges and Kevin Porter, and I don't know, there's heaps of them. And then portrait artists like Francis Bell and Timothy Rees, and they just all paint from life, and they just have these beautiful, their paintings are so beautiful and just have a real softness and just a real presence to them. So, yeah, those are the sort of overseas artists I like. I think in New Zealand, I love artists that are doing things with light and atmosphere, I guess, like I am. Like, I love Gary Curran's work and like Selena Kitchen, just ones that do real atmospheric things. Barry Ross Smith for his like surreal stuff. Yeah, there's so many. It's just I could go on.
Mm. Okay, well, we are going to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Rosanne, for your time and for sharing your personal story. It's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been lovely.